Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over part 3, which is pages 17 through 21. So first things first, some vocab in this section. Um, Only one for this section. It's mainly a conversation between Montag and Mildred, but she talks about her wall-to-wall circuit. We already heard this as her parlor walls, but I just want to make sure you had like a visualization going here. So it's basically a TV room where all the walls are TVs. Mildred currently has 3 of the 4 walls. And a big conversation in this section is that she wants Montag to buy that 4th wall, which is like a huge part of his annual salary. So we kind of start to see Mildred's detachment from reality, I guess. Kind of her detachment from what is possible. She's just all about that immediate pleasure, making sure that she's tuned out from the world. So next thing we're going to talk about literary elements. This is a really important one and one that's kind of tricky. It's theme. So theme is everything in literature. Theme is like the big idea. It's universal. It's the big idea, and it's kind of like a critical belief about life that the author is trying to convey. So it's not necessarily like what it's about. It's kind of like the idea behind it. So it's universal, so you'll be able to find the same themes across different like songs and movies and music. And you just because you identify the theme, you may not agree with it, but you should be able to find evidence from the text to support that theme. So something that theme often is confused with is topic. So theme is the central message, but topic is what's actually being talked about. So for example, in Fahrenheit 451, the topic is Montag, who's a fireman, and his changes, but a theme might be the theme of censorship and its correlation to control. So it's kind of topic is what it's like directly about on the surface, and theme is like that deeper underlying message. It refers to the central idea. It's a subject that is treated or presented within writing, and topics play the role of explaining what a story is all about, and themes explain why it was written in the first place. So the theme is not usually explicitly stated. It's not like the author writes in a sentence saying, the theme of this book is this. Theme is something that you start to pick up on as you're reading more and more. You're like, oh, okay, I'm getting this is like the bigger idea. So while you're reading Fahrenheit 451, start thinking about those themes. Those big universal truths that you can connect to our world, that you can connect to other songs, that you can connect to other works of literature, movies. If a theme is only in, if you can only find it in that text, it may not be a theme. It might be too narrow. Think of theme as like these big universal truths that the story addresses, and do that cross-checking. That's a good way to check for theme. We're going to keep coming back to theme because that's a big part of this story, and it's a really important thing to understand. So just kind of start considering what you think the themes might be, but if you don't know quite yet, don't stress. It'll keep developing as the story becomes more explained and more developed itself. Okay, the summary, part 3. What the heck happened in part 3? So part 2 was crazy, right? Mildred overdosed. Montag calls for the men to come and pump her stomach, which is like seems to be a totally normal thing in their world. So then we get into this section. Mildred has no memory of overdosing. She doesn't remember doing that at all. She's like, oh no, everything was great. I don't know what happened. She's super excited for this TV show. Basically, the way it works is she sends in like these box tops from her like food purchases, and then they send her the script and tell her like she's going to be playing this role. So then the characters on the screen are like acting, and then they'll pause and wait, and that's when Mildred will say her lines. So she's like part of the show. And she talks about these people in the TV show as if they're very close friends of hers, like if they're people she knows in real life. So it kind of starts to show us where Mildred is at as far as her like connection to reality. Like she thinks she's part of the show, that the people in the show are her friends. Mildred is obviously living kind of a detached life here. And that we see that again when she asks Montag to buy that 4th TV wall, and he's kind of like, well, that's like a big part of my salary. And she's like, it's fine, just buy it. You know, she's not necessarily living in the same reality as Montag is. So Montag finally is like, sure, whatever, and then leaves and goes outside into the rain. Clarice is there as well. And she's just being her usual Clarice self and talking about love and rain and all these wonderful things, asking him if he's in love. She does this thing. I don't know if you guys used to do this when you were kids, but you take a dandelion, you like put it under your chin, and if your chin is yellow, then it means you're in love. So she does that to Montag. She takes the little dandelion and puts it under his chin, and she says he's not in love. Which, Montag's like, well, no, of course I have a wife, and da, da, da. But we're starting to see that maybe Montag and Mildred aren't as connected as they would want to be for married people. So of course, Clarice telling him like, you're not really in love. I mean, it's a silly thing, but he's like, ooh, maybe she's right. Clarice mentioned, she's like, oh, I'm off to see my psychologist. And he says I'm like an onion, like I have all these layers. So obviously her being like a happy, curious, questioning person is not like it's like something to be fixed in this society. It's something to be like, oh no, that's bad. Let's fix her. So she encourages Montag to kind of like slow down and think about life, and do things like catching raindrops on his tongue. And of course, Montag in his typical like stolid Montag way is kind of like, oh, this kid's ridiculous. But then she leaves and he tips his head back and catches some raindrops on his tongue. And that's where the section concludes. So I want you to really consider that Montag would do an action like that, because that's not his like main way of being, right? For him to kind of do something silly and frivolous like that. But it starts to signal to us that Clarice is having a pretty major effect on this guy. Like she's really getting in his head and getting him to consider things that he otherwise just kind of went about his day, didn't think about, kind of had his like blinders on, like, nope, just doing what I need to do. So keep that in mind. Like, what is this role that Clarice is playing? Like, why is she having such an effect on him? Is it a perfect storm of just everything kind of happening at the same time, or is it more intentional than that? So I really want you to consider, like, why are these characters changing the way they're changing? What role does each character play? Because as an author, you create characters to do specific roles. You don't just kind of throw them in all willy-nilly, right? So really consider, how is Bradbury using each character? Like, what is their purpose while you're reading this? So that's it for section 3. I will see you soon for section 4. Okay, keep reading. I'll see you online.